Hi ladies and gentlemen, Murunuri from Work here again. This video is not going to be on an occult topic. This is going to be a neutral video. I obviously have a playlist too with recreational and miscellaneous videos, which this video will be placed in. I don't just discuss occult matters after all, okay? I also discuss other things that appeal to me. And in this video, I'll be discussing the horrendous mentality, the really bad mentality that people from third world countries, generally speaking, have, or better said, what are supposed to pass for people. I don't call them people, I call them vermin. But yeah, in any case, here goes. Most of you that know me know that unfortunately, I've had the misfortune of being born in a work less than nothing shithole country. That's called Suriname. It's simply a former colony that belongs to the Netherlands. And just like most shitholes, or practically every shithole country, like Donald Trump said, again, this shithole is no different really, okay? This shithole is worthless by biblical standards. I don't want to be mean, but by biblical standards. And yeah, I'm simply going to discuss certain aspects of that, not of the country. This is, like I said in the beginning, this is about the mentality that people that live in third world countries have. Before I start, I also need to state that, just bluntly put, one's ethnicity, skin color, or any other background does not make you inferior, okay? The problem with people in third world countries, regardless of their ethnic background, regardless of whether they're black, white, or anything in between, that doesn't make them inferior. Their attitude does, okay? And as is the case with most work less than nothing third world countries, the problem doesn't lie with the population and the fact that the majority is colored. The problem lies with the fact that these colored people, generally speaking, don't have manners. They don't know what proper etiquette is. They don't know what decency is. I'm not saying that everything has to be perfect all the time, but most of you out there are familiar with what people are like in third world countries, you know, especially Europeans. Europeans still have an unjust and biased stereotype that, well, it's not unjust and biased, but it doesn't apply to everyone. It's just a generalization. They have the idea that people that live in third world countries, tropical countries, are stupid colored people that are ugly and that can't think, that barely even know what a computer is. That statement is 80% accurate, roughly estimated. Okay, I'm an exception to that rule, obviously, an obvious exception, and I'm not the only one. Okay, all I'm saying is that this is a generalization. It's like saying that all black people are worthless. Okay, when you make the statement black people are worthless, doesn't mean that every black person on this earth is worthless. It simply means that the majority of them are. Okay, these are facts, okay, hard-hitting facts that you need to deal with. And that's why the majority of people that live in third world countries, at the very least most of them, most tropical countries, are black people. But again, this is regardless of ethnicity. This is regardless of ethnicity, okay? We're all familiar with the whole notion, okay? The way that things work in third world countries, the lack of any order, the lack of any structure, the lack of a proper timetable, okay? Neighbors asking other neighbors for a cup of sugar or a cup of salt because they forgot to go to the grocery store or they don't have the money to do so. These are things that I hate immensely, okay? And something that you should never ask me unless you want me to treat you like garbage. As a matter of fact, I treat garbage better because I despise things like that. I'm very punctual, as an example. If I make an appointment with someone to show up at 2 p.m., then I show up at 10 minutes before said appointed time. I show up at 1:50 p.m. But here, for example, just as an example, believe me, if you make an appointment with someone at 2 p.m., that person is going to arrive at 2:30, 2:30, 2:45. And not only will he or she do so, he or she, that person will act as if nothing's wrong, like he or she didn't do anything wrong. The very concept of decency and of being punctual is, they're not even, that the concept of doing that is alien to them. That's how worthless they are. That's example number one. Example number two is asking your neighbors for a cup of sugar or a cup of salt. I would never do something like that. If I don't have something in my household, then I either see to it that I have the money to afford it, or I may do without it, period. But I'm not going to directly turn my burden into other people's burdens, let alone my neighbors. That's not, it really makes a bad impression on any normal, decent person. Okay, it just screams third world vermin. That's what it screams. And I never liked it, okay? There are exceptional situations, but no, I don't like it, okay? It doesn't matter how tightly knit a community is. It doesn't matter how good people are, on what good terms they are with each other. Something like that is not something you should do. You should mind your own business and whatnot, period, okay? If you have a good bond with the neighbor, then you can invite each other over. You can go out together, okay? If you become friends with your neighbors, great, I'm all for that. But you should never, regardless of what happens, okay, do something like that. That you're going to ask your neighbors for something. Can I borrow your screwdriver and never return it? Or can I borrow a cup of sugar? No, there's no such thing, okay? Stick to doing that as little as possible, preferably not. I understand, in the example of a screwdriver, I understand. Maybe you're someone that doesn't work with tools, and you're simply asking a neighbor, hey, can I borrow your screwdriver? But the return that right away, the second that you're done. Don't let your neighbor come ask you for something that belongs to him, because something like that would really upset me. And I'd openly tell that person, no, I'm not lending you anything ever again, okay? Don't ask me for borrowing anything. I don't care whether you're upset, I don't care what the hell's wrong with you. I don't care. You don't have to talk to me ever again. That was example number 2. Example number 3 is how worthlessly jealous people from third world countries, generally speaking, are. Okay, jealousy and just the inability to be able to not stand the fact that someone else is doing better than you is, believe me, it's a huge problem in work less enough in third world countries. People in workless holes like here are almost in near constant competition with each other. They constantly want to outclass each other, mostly in terms of material gain or material wealth. Again, we all know what worthless third world vermin is like, okay? It's literally like vermin. The same way vermin isn't used to having food, so all they do is forage for food. It's the same thing with the vermin that lives in third world countries. They're not used to having money, so all they think about is making money, 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 money. That's all they can think about. They don't know what the true values are in life, or little of them do. And they don't know what morals are and self-worth and dignity and all of that. No. Not most of them in any case. Yeah, and this is an example that I'm going to give, okay? 5 years ago, I didn't nearly make as much money as I did. And not a friend, an acquaintance of mine, someone that I know well, okay? I'm not going to go too deep into his personality or anything like that, or any information. I'm not going to share any personal information. Not going to share any personal information. Okay, it's just an acquaintance of mine. He's known me for a good while, I think, under 10 years before I was well off materially or financially. And before that, he never asked me anything. And now all of a sudden, okay, in the past 2 or 3 months, I've had 2 to 3 requests for financial aid, for a loan or something similar, which I really don't like, okay? Because my point is, back in the day when I was broke, you didn't ask me a single goddamn thing, okay? You didn't ask me anything because you knew that, hey, Marino's broke, I don't have to ask him anything. And now, since you've noticed that I'm rolling in dough, so to speak, since you've noticed that I've got bucket loads of money, metaphorically speaking, all of a sudden you're just literally just trying your luck with me, okay, which is something that I despise. And my attitude towards that entire thing is, don't ask me a goddamn thing. You never asked me anything before, okay, and now all of a sudden, because I'm doing well, you all of a sudden want to share in the spoils. All of a sudden you want me to help you out with a loan or anything similar. You want a piece of the pie when it's not your pie at all. I'm the one that baked the goddamn pie, so you don't deserve anything. Period. And yeah, stuff like that will really make me want to not only unfriend you, but want to have nothing to do with you anymore. The only reason that I didn't put this acquaintance in his place, and I just gave him the short answer, no, the second time. The first time I made an exception and I told him, fine, I'll help you out, which I regretted, to be honest. Because, long story short, I had to ask multiple times. It's like I was running after my own money, which I'm definitely not going to do. I've always been of the opinion that, again, banks aid people financially. Okay, financial organizations aid people financially. People don't aid each other financially, nor are they supposed to. There are exceptional situations in every circumstance, okay? But generally speaking, this is the case. If something gruesome happened to you, your house burned down, and you literally have nowhere else to go, you're sleeping on the side of the street, and you were to just step up to me and explain your situation, and you just asked me for help or a place to stay or something, and you tell me that you'd pay me back. At least then I'd be willing to think about it, okay? Because I'm taking your situation into consideration, and assuming that you're someone whose work means something, then yeah, I'd be willing to help you out, I think. Maybe. I'd at least think about it. But no, long story short, I just told that acquaintance, the second time he asked me for help, I told him no, period. And yeah, and that was that. And I also said no, that's the time that I helped him is the first and the last time. From now on, no, I'm going to be Mr. No. No one has to ask me a single thing. My answer is going to be a resolute no the second someone is stupid enough to ask me for help. I don't like that, okay? That's what Vermin mentality is all about. No normal human being would do something like that. I personally don't care about who has what or what you do. If you're doing well for yourself, congratulations, the best to you. I'm happy for you, generally speaking. Not that you need my congratulations or my best wishes. But again, out of politeness, I'm happy to see that you're doing well, generally speaking. But again, I don't care. I'm not going to compare myself to others in that aspect or that regard. If you're doing well for yourself, then hey, knock yourself out. But I'm not going to all of a sudden become jealous because I've noticed that you're doing well, and I'm going to try to weasel my way into your life to the point where I can actually profit from the fact that you're doing well. I don't want that. Okay? If you in the past didn't have a car, and then all of a sudden I noticed that you bought one heavy ass car, you bought a nice fully automatic 4-wheel drive pickup truck, I'm not going to all of a sudden ask you, hey, can you help me out by driving me into town or anything like that. No, that would be inappropriate. But yeah, third world Vermin does not know that. Believe me, more often than not, they will be stupid enough to ask you something like that. And that hints at my example. My reaction will literally be so rude that you'll never have the balls to ask me anything again. The first thing, so I'll be saying something along the lines like, do I look like a fucking cab to you? According to you, I've all of a sudden turned into a free cab driver. According to you, I bought a car to literally just drive people up and down. People like you that are stupid enough to ask me for free rides into town. Before I had a car, you didn't ask me a single goddamn thing, and now all of a sudden you're asking me because you've noticed that I bought a car. Here's the tip, don't ask me a fucking thing. That's what my answer would be like. That's the way I am. I will just crush you mentally right there. Okay, you'll never have the balls to ask me anything again. Again, people in wealthy countries, people in developed countries, generally speaking, don't ask actual people, don't ask each other things like that. Listen, you can ask me once, but not to the point where you can clearly tell that it's not a coincidence. If you can ask me once and I can chalk it up to coincidence, okay? If based on the situation, I can tell that, hey, this is a coincidence, you know, he just happened to ask me because his car broke down and I coincidentally drove by. But this isn't a coincidence, okay? You can clearly tell in the example that I listed, that acquaintance of mine, you could clearly tell that, again, he that he observed the fact that I wasn't doing well in the past before. Back then he wouldn't even dream of asking me for a loan. And now all of a sudden he's seeing that I'm doing well and he's asking me for money, or he's asking me questions relating to how he can make money via me or through me. So ways that in which I can pay him, and I really dislike that, okay? This is just straight up jealousy. He just, again, he just took notice, he took stock of the situation, and now all of a sudden you're asking me stuff like this. And generally speaking, the only reason that I was short and straight to the point with him is because I've known him for years and he's an acquaintance. But he himself knows that he's treading on thin ice with me. Because if he makes one false move, then yeah, I will yell at him to the point where he'll never have the balls to ask me anything again. Again, these are all examples, okay? And yeah, that's also where I come to example number 4. People in third world countries, generally speaking, the vermin, as I call them, their work means little to nothing, okay? Their work, their work is a perfect reflection, generally speaking, of their self-worth, or better said, lack of self-worth. Again, their work means nothing. You can take their work with a grain of salt, less than a grain of salt even. With me, my work means anything, means everything, okay? My honor code means everything. I live by an honor code, okay? If I tell you that I'm going to do something for you, then I'm going to do it. If I'm not going to do it, then I'll tell you, listen, I'm sorry, but I just don't feel like doing this anymore, despite the fact that I told you, or it won't work for some reason or another. But if they tell you something, then believe me, don't expect anything. It's going to be a wonder if you do get anything. So things like appointments, things like have semi-promises to each other, just dates and general things that people help each other out with, believe me, their word doesn't mean a single thing, okay? If you need your driveway fixed and an acquaintance of yours tells you that he's going to come by, more often than not, again, if it's in a work less than nothing country that's supposed to be a country, then no. Don't expect him to come by anytime soon. And if you ask him, then he'll either give you some cockamamie answer or some stupid answer, or he just won't answer you flat out unless you confront him personally in a real person. And most likely it will be the first if you do so. If you see him physically, he's going to tell you, he's going to make up a bunch of cockamamie stories, okay? But bottom line is that you'll automatically notice that you can't take him seriously. That's unfortunately also what people in third world countries are like, okay? Their work has no value, generally speaking. They can tell you A today and B tomorrow, or they'll just make up excuses. That's one of the many reasons for why work less than nothing countries are work less than nothing. The third world overall is worthless because of things like that. These are all examples that I listed. Lack of punctuality, lack of self-worth, their work doesn't mean anything, lack of order and structure, corruption, you name it. Again, but these are generally speaking ridiculously bad manners that I would not ask from anyone. And again, it's not a coincidence that the majority of people that display these character traits are people of color, okay? I'm not going to drift off to an ethnic discussion, but these are cold hard facts, okay? Rarely do I see Caucasian people not living up to their appointment or not living up to an agreement. But generally speaking, colored people are much more prone, especially black people, they're a lot more prone to committing to the quote-unquote atrocities that I just mentioned, okay? Lack of punctuality, lack of decency, constantly sticking out their hands, asking for handouts, you name it. My point is, don't ask me a goddamn thing, okay? It's inappropriate to do so. Any normal person would know that. But again, Vermin doesn't know what decency is and what common sense is and what having manners is. They don't know that, okay? The same way a rat doesn't ask you for your permission to enter your home. He just comes around and scurries around and hopes he doesn't get seen. It's the same thing with them. And yeah, there aren't really any other examples that come to mind, but these are just a couple of examples out of many that I can give. But no other examples come to mind. And I think most of you, all of you, or at the very least, most of you will agree with me out there, okay? These things are horrendously inappropriate, and if anyone that's watching this pleads guilty, so to speak, to the aforementioned topics or the aforementioned bullet points, then yeah, I would strongly suggest that you take a good hard look at yourself in the mirror and you really get your act together, or bluntly said, you get your shit together. Because again, that's no way to be, okay? That's no way to go through life, and don't expect any mercy when you come across someone like me that will just outright treat you like garbage and traumatize you. I've never in my life done something like that. Okay, just as a human being, okay, from the perspective of an actual human being, you can tell that any of these things are inappropriate and that they make a bad impression. They leave a bad impression. It's not so much about other people, it's about a reflection of self-worth, okay? I'm punctual, again, I'm punctual. If there's something, come on time, I show up on time. The only way that I won't show up on time is if some tragedy befell me, if I was run over by a car or something, okay? And if I were in a coma, you wouldn't be able to reach me. Morino's late, he hasn't arrived, what the hell's wrong with him? He was run over by a car, he's in a coma right now. That's the only way that I will not show up on time for an appointment, or something else has to happen, okay? I'm in a huge, mile-long traffic jam or something similar, okay? I don't ask my neighbors a cup of sugar or a cup of salt. I don't look at my neighbors, okay? In my personal situation, I don't want anything to do with my neighbors, but that's because they're vermin, okay? They're a bunch of worthless, stupid Negroes, and they know that I don't like them. And I have a zero tolerance policy, okay? If my neighbors make one false move, I'm going to shoot them, or I'm going to hack in on them with my Crusader sword, period. But again, that's an example, okay? I'm not, even if you're on good terms with your neighbors, don't ask them stupid stuff like that, okay? Don't ask people, hey, can you borrow me money? Can you lend me $100? No, okay? And even worse, if that person has to run after you or come after you for his or her own money, that's even worse. Okay, these are all, this is Vermin mentality, period. Okay, I don't do anything like that. I don't ask people for loans. I don't ask things for, even if I take out a loan, it's at a bank. Go to a bank issues loans. If you can't get a loan, then you're out of luck. Then go to a loan shark if you're so that desperate. But don't go running around asking people for money to lend you. Okay, it's inappropriate to do so. Okay, it paints a bad picture about you. It says something about you and not something positive. All these things are things that are common sense tells you these things, okay? But again, Vermin easily does this. That's why it's easier for them to break the law and to commit criminal acts. Okay, people that have self-worth like me, I would never just trespass on someone's property or do something like that. I would never do anything like that. But again, under no normal circumstance would I do something like that. But for them, the concept of, hey, I'm trespassing, this is not only illegal, it's immoral, generally speaking, from a global perspective, on a global scale. That thought doesn't even go through them, okay? That thought's completely alien to them. They don't possess the mental faculty or the mental faculties or the intellectual faculty to actually get enough brain power together to think to the point where if something like that goes through their mind, hey, I can't trespass on someone's yard. Nope. Again, that's also why I treat them like the vermin that they are, and they know well because they keep themselves at a ridiculous distance from me because they know what's going to come if they make one false move. Yeah, and again, these are just all examples, okay? Normal people don't do this. So if anyone out there is suffering from this illness that I call vermin mentality, this illness that I call vermin mentality, then I would say get your act together, okay, or get your shit together, okay? See to it that you're punctual, let your word actually mean something. A promise is a promise. If you don't keep your promise, or if you don't keep your word, then your word doesn't mean anything. And if your word doesn't mean anything, that makes you a couple of steps closer to not being worth anything, at the very least. Okay, and just do the right thing, actual think like a normal human being, okay? Have morals, have standards that you set for yourself, and don't compare yourself to others. It doesn't matter whether you're if your cousin or a nephew or a family member or an acquaintance of yours becomes a multi-millionaire today or tomorrow. Don't ask him a goddamn thing unless he specifically asks you for involvement in his life and he is willing to help you out. But it comes from him. But don't act like a panhandler or a hobo or a beggar and just go up to your cousin just because he won the lottery and then ask him for money. Again, you can't call yourself a human being if you do things like these, okay? Parasites do things like these. People do not do things like these. And yeah, in any case, that's what I wanted to discuss, and thanks for watching. I'll hear it if, as usual, if anybody has anything to say in the comment section. Bye.